avoiding zombieism in our teaching is what we're shooting for here. So just to go through the kind of idea that we hope to keep repeating in this presentation, we talk about ideas and principles first, and then try to talk about some applications. We'll start talking about the principles almost exclusively and then move into the practices. But when we're talking into practices, some of the principles will be woven in too. As we talk about the principles, we'll be learning from others and from the research and from our own experience. And as we talk about applying practices, we're just going to be talking about some ideas. The kinds of things that we're talking about today are going to be found throughout the conference. We heard some from President Clark already today. The last presentation that I went to about audio feedback was full of the kinds of ideas that we're going to be talking about today. We'll be talking about some ideas. It's a grab bag. The food that we provided outside was not just to lure you in and get your brain sugar-fied so that you can listen more attentively, but it's an analogy, and it's what happens when we're talking to people online, and in this presentation too. We provide a lot of things, and we don't know what the other people want exactly. And we hope that they'll find some things that they want and that they'll take some of them. When we're teaching online, we'll do that in lots of ways, and we'll keep repeating, we'll keep re-emphasizing this as we go on, but this whole presentation is going to be like that. We don't know exactly what you need in your class, of course, and we don't know what's going to be best for your course. So we'll provide a bunch of ideas, knowing that you'll hopefully just take a few, the ones that you want the most. And we provided junk food in the hall, but none of the ideas today are junk food ideas. They're all very nutritious.
Hey, sometimes junk food brings us together. I ate pie with my family last night. That was an awesome conversation around our pie.
Okay, that's true. So we'll give you a nutritious idea about how to provide junk food. So the first question though is can computers do the teaching? Because computers can do a lot, as you highlighted. Computers can provide pictures. Computers can do a lot. This is from the BYU Online Instructor Handbook. Online students want to need communication and feedback, interactivity, a sense of community, adequate direction and empowerment to carry out the task required for the course. It could be argued that computers can do a lot of that, right? Computers can provide feedback right now, especially for multiple choice questions. You can get instant feedback. Even if you're in a class of 150,000 students, you can get instant personalized feedback from a computer. Computers can provide smart communication, as this brother mentioned. They can facilitate the development of community. We all have online communities that we're part of, and they can provide direction and information. Who hasn't watched a YouTube video to see how to do some project at home? It could be argued computers can do all of this stuff to one extent or another. But there are some things that computers can't do. I think that's what our whole conference this time is going to be focused on. What can computers not do? Well, arguably match the difficulty of questions to students' level of understanding. Although some computer programs can pretty well help students progress from where they're at. Similarly, computers can't really fine-tune feedback and adaptive teaching to incorporate the nuances of a student's personality. And maybe more importantly, and this touches on some of the things President Clark was talking about, computers can't be nurturing. Not really nurturing. Lepper and Wolverton reported a study where they interviewed and watched a bunch of the most effective tutors, and they identified the 8 or so characteristics of the tutors that were making the biggest difference to the students. And in that list, nurturing figured prominently and pretty high. Students did better. They achieved more highly when their tutors were nurturing. And computers can't do that. And we could talk about a lot of things that computers can't do, but to encapsulate it, a computer can't be a person. And here's something that is maybe, we probably all know intuitively, but maybe we should just get out there. Computers can't be known to be a person. A student can't know that their teacher is a person, and knowing that your teacher is a person makes a difference, not just having a person there to perform the tasks that only people can do, but for the students to know that there's a person that they're interacting with influences their education.
So one of the things that to be known to be a person, especially here at BYU-Idaho, is to be able to feel the spirit. You cannot feel the spirit from this table. You cannot feel the spirit from a projector, but you can feel the spirit from a person. And when they feel that spirit that comes from us, even if it's across great distances, I mean, God doesn't care about distance. He doesn't really care about time. They can feel that. And that is an element at BYU-Idaho that a lot of other universities don't have, because we have the spirit, and you can make yourself be known to be a person. And when you do that, you get comments. Oops, wrong computer, sorry. Okay, you get things like this. Thanks to her interest in my learning, I try very hard not to disappoint her. So the part of this is they're trying hard not to disappoint me, okay? And that extra student learning comes from not only the student, but the teacher reaching out too, because can anybody force a student to participate in your class? I can't. If you know the secret, let me know. The only thing that we can control is what we do, what we put out there, what food we put out there, and then the students get to pick what they eat. And they might pick a carrot and just pop it in their mouth and we never see it. They might bring in a napkin of food and email us and say, oh, I really like this part about this. We're not 100% sure sometimes what those students are doing. But when we do those things and they do tell us these make comments like this about not wanting to disappoint, then that's when we know that we are doing something right.
So I want to interrupt here for just a minute. Christy is the OCR for Foundations of Science 203 class that we teach, and I'm the TGL. I get to look at everyone's classes, and I've gotten to look at Christy's class a bunch of times. She's an awesome teacher, and the students love her. And she got a lot of comments back on the student evaluations talking about how personable she is. So in our earlier draft, we had a whole slide that just was comments from Christy's students about how awesome she is. I thought that was good because you'd have more faith in her knowing she really knows how to do this.
I'll get my wallet out after.
Yeah, and Christy said, don't let anyone know that these are comments to me. So I'm just telling you, these comments, these student comments, are all about Christy.
I'm gonna take it out on him later. Okay, so another one, definitely communication. I felt comfortable in the class. They're describing how they're feeling. And just one last one about being personable. I dive into the discussions. She pushes me just enough without completely going over my head, and now because of that, I love the subject, not just like it. And doing these little things that we're going to go through. If you haven't already got comments, I'm sure a lot of you, most of you, all of you get comments like this. You get more, hopefully. Maybe if I do it better, then I'll get more. So.
It doesn't matter who you are. In a sense, it does. A positive personality that's expressive has been found to be more influential to students. They're learning that better when you're expressive, especially. And some personality types are better suited to better classes based on student reviews. That is intuitive, right? What may not be intuitive is that it doesn't matter. Some things about your personality don't matter. A review of the literature, a review of the reviews, a meta review of studies that looked at student ratings of their teachers found that age, gender, teaching experience, race, research productivity, none of that consistently mattered to student evaluations. So to a large degree, your actual personality and who you are doesn't matter too much, but how you interact with the students, that matters a lot. So in a way, for people like me, I think that's hopeful because the students really don't have to know all my stupid parts. I can present to them the person I want to present to them, and I know what that kind of person is. So I can be, in a way, I'm a person, and I don't want to advocate not being real. We need to be real and vulnerable, but at the same time, what they're dealing with is an avatar. It's not really the whole messy us, and that's good to know, I think. And even if they did know the whole messy us, the point is they wouldn't care. They wouldn't care if we were old or young or black or white or whatever.
Yes. Okay, so this comes from comes from the handbook, right? I think. One of the ways that the spirit of Ricks is manifest is through the application of spiritual gifts that come through the Holy Ghost. I mentioned this before about we can put the spirit out there, and do the things that the students need to do. President Clark made a comment, or Clark Gilbert. President Gilbert, sorry.
I'm saying Clark too.
Sorry. Said it would be easy to look for ways to help learners learn alone using the wonders of technology. And then, skipping a paragraph, he said, the climbs to the places where God would have us go are never for us alone. And Christ is there for us. And he knows the things that we need to do. He knows the things that our students need. And so we're not there alone. The students are not there alone. We need to be there for them. We have a handout online. I thought that they would have it in paper form here. At least I requested it, but that's okay. There is a TED Talk on the handout. I encourage all of you to go and look up that TED Talk afterwards. It's on our handout. It's just at the bottom. And it is an awesome video. It's 7 minutes long, so it's not going to kill you. You know, do it for, like, go to sleep or something. I don't know. But this comes from Linda Client-Wyman. And we must never forget, I'm going to change this a little bit, that every single one of our students is a person, often scared by what the world tells them that they should be. And if nobody told them that they love them today, remember that we do. Now, are we going to go out and just tell our students, love Sister Parkinson? Anybody feel comfortable doing that with their students? We can't come out and actually say, you know, we love them.
I do.
Do you? You have that kind of a personality.
About halfway through, I've gained enough of a rapport with them, and I say,
well, then why are you
I
here?
love you all.
Why are you in this presentation?
Because I want to get better.
Okay, some people I guess can get away with that. I don't feel comfortable coming out and just saying I love you or signing an email, love Sister Parkinson. I can't do that. It's just not in me. But by the things that we do, we need to show them that we love them and that we care about them, that we want them to succeed, that we are helping them pursue their dreams. So, is this one more? Oh, okay. So again, I think Arthur mentioned this earlier. We're going to present a whole list of stuff here now, ideas, and we want you to go for the gaps. Don't pick all of these because it's going to overwhelm you. Go for what things that you're comfortable with. We're going to present a bunch of practices that you can implement in your classrooms, and just pick what works for you. Try things out. If it doesn't seem to work for you, try other things, because a little bit of everything is just too much. You've got to simplify it. A lot of people say more or less is more. So please do that.
Oh, you know that a lot of what we say is nonverbal. A theme for personalizing or humanizing our classes, for helping students to know that we're people, for not being zombie instructors, is that we have to explain to them the nonverbal cues that they would get if we were talking to them face to face. If this is right, 93% of our communication is nonverbal. Whether it's 93% or not, we all know that the information that we're getting from the other person has a lot to do with not just what they're saying, not the words. Online, there's a translational distance that exists because the students get our text and they have to translate that into something that means something to them. So at the very least, they're just translating, trying to get meaning out of the words, which is hard if you don't really know what the other person is doing and looking like. But they're also, I believe, interpreting our body language and the nonverbal cues from what we write. And we just have to understand that they're going to be doing that. So I think that we need to be consciously finding ways to explain to them those cues that they're familiar with and that we're all familiar with that they can't really get, so that we can lessen that translational distance. This is really similar to me to dealing with God, because there's a translational distance with him too, right? And we don't, most of us don't see him face to face, and we don't really understand his body language, but many of us feel like we can understand him as a person, as a being, as an entity who loves us deeply. So we get your papers out again and your pencils. And will you think of some scriptures that teach you about God's love for you, about his concern for you? Not ones where he's saying it, because computers can claim it. But how do you know God as a person? How do you overcome that translational distance with God? Are we finding in the text the things that explain to us who God is as a person is more than just the words? 60 seconds. We take 60 seconds right now. Go. Okay. Will you just turn to your neighbor and share some of those ideas with you? How do you find out about God through the text? Who he is as a person, as a being? 30 seconds. 30 seconds.
In the forum was
Okay, wrap it up. Take 5 seconds to express that thought. Okay, wrap it up. We got to move on. Don't you wish we could talk about that more? In a way, we could have a whole discussion just about how interacting with God is similar to online teaching. And maybe eventually online teaching will get to be more like interacting with God. Maybe computers won't have to be involved in the future. Maybe students will just pray.
Okay, so here is your first practice, using vivid vocabulary. Now, who in here is a poet and can write in flowery, awesome language while teaching your class? Really? Nobody? Awesome, good job. Way to put yourself out there.
Although not all poetry is flowery.
Oh, yes. that's the kind of thing though. Okay, so when I'm talking about vivid vocabulary, I'm not talking about like huge sentences with tons and tons of adjectives that are really, like, so students don't even know it. So a couple of things. Use appropriate adjectives. Don't use too many. My favorite thing to use is the thesaurus, but the part of the thesaurus is you don't want to use words that students aren't going to know, especially since we're getting more and more students that are international. Make sure that you're using words that are correctly used in the context. Don't use a word that you don't know how to use, but go out there and get them. Okay? Choose vivid, expressive language. So when you are talking to them, you can tell them how you feel. You know, I felt that your paper was like this, or I felt that this discussion board post was like that. Use expressive language for things like how you feel, and that will go a long ways to showing that you are really thinking about them and that they're hopefully, you know, getting what you want them to get out of it. Ask poignant questions to enhance learning. Okay, a lot of us, because we are time bound, I mean, who in here has like all day, every day to spend on their class? Okay, we are time bound, and we need to think about those questions though. So it's really easy to just throw a question out there just so that we have a presence out there. But it's better to come up with questions, and this can be done from over semesters of time. For each different week, over time, come up with the best questions that students seem to respond to the best. Keep them for the next semester, and you may or may not use it for the next semester. But if you have a collection of good questions that the students really respond to, that is so much better than throwing out 5 stupid questions. Okay. Another thing, if you have a hard time coming up with descriptive language and you have an action-oriented thing that you need them to do, I encourage you to go look up Bloom's Taxonomy Verbs. They are very descriptive, they're to the point, and students have a lot easier time understanding what your expectations are when you use these verbs. And then express positive personality. And sometimes this is hard because sometimes when we're really happy when we type stuff, and then I get like a hate email back from students, and it's like, I promise I totally didn't mean that in the wrong way or in that way.
This isn't sincere or anything, but this is just something I've found a lot of success with. It takes to take it for what it's worth. Use emoticons.
Oh, hold that thought.
Because
I paid him $1 before this, by the way.
Am I done now, or?
Yes, you're done. So, another thing that you can use, here's another practice, applicable anecdotes, okay? Anecdotes are great. Choose them carefully, okay? Make them apply to the class. You have to have a purposeful sharing of yourself in your classes because they don't want to listen to you ramble on because they often have full-time jobs and church callings and family stuff, so they don't want to listen to rambling. But you can put yourself out there as a person with experiences that you have had, and that helps them get to know you and develop that trust. And even if that anecdote is not you being perfect, that's okay. Everybody is vulnerable. If you are not coming across like the perfect person, I mean, you don't have to come across like a horrible person either, but it's okay to show a little bit of that. Show them that you're a human, okay? It's okay, I promise. They won't hate you.
Can I ask a question
Yeah.
on that? Where would you use an anecdote? Like on your notes page?
I don't generally, it's kind of up to you where you think it's best. I don't generally use them on my notes pages. I generally use little snippets on my discussion boards and emails to students, like in conversations that I have on the side. I sometimes use them in papers, like feedback on papers. We have a paper in our class where they talk about using energy and sustainability and stuff. And so I bring genealogy into it. I know that sounds really weird what I just said, but I promise it works. It is applicable. But, you know, just bring that kind of stuff in, just where and when you can, where you feel comfortable. Because, again, you don't have to share stuff about yourself that you're not comfortable with. But it does make you seem like a real person if you do that. Okay, so it doesn't matter about if you're an introvert, you're an extrovert, it matters that your personality is given the chance to shine. Are you gonna ruin my presentation again?
I'm gonna try it.
Okay.
No, but just one is an interesting story. I do a lot of videos in my courses. I teach programming, so it's really visual. They need to see programming, see how it works and stuff. And one time I was making the video, I made this huge mistake in the video, and I was like 20 minutes in, and I'm like, oh, I don't know.
Blooper.
Don't care, I'm just gonna do it. And so I sat there for probably, a good 10-20 seconds. Okay, let's do it, let's just figure it out. Then I figured it out, finished the video, and I'm like, man, I should really cut that part out. Man, I'm lazy, no, I'm not gonna do it. So I posted it, give it to the students. It's crazy to see the feedback. They're all like, thank you for leaving that in. Because they're like, I got to see, you debug, and it showed that you make mistakes too, and it was just awesome.
Yeah.
Like, okay, cool. So
That's awesome.
making mistakes is the worst thing.
That's really cool. Okay, so here's an example from my class. Okay, well, there's a week that we talk about the biosphere, which is like an enclosed environment where everybody can live in a sustainable way. And so I bring up eating insects in that. Like, would you eat insects to be more healthy? And this is a comment that I got from a student. I think you're one of my coolest teachers ever. I love how you admit things and you think they are not cool, but it is, quite the opposite. Isn't that like an awesome thing? That anecdote. And like, she has connected with me. That was the first week of class. And like, she emails me all the time because that connected with her. That anecdote connected with her. And here's another one. If you have a piece of paper that is big enough that you can write on, I want you to write in big letters. I want you to write an onomatopoeic word about how you feel about this presentation and hold it up.
We just do our thumbs.
You do your thumbs? That's I can't see that with online students.
Oh.
I can't see them. Yeah, an
Sure,
onomatopoeia.
you can emote. You use can emote.
Talking
Emoji.
about emoticons in a minute.
Yeah, we'll get back to those. Anybody? How do you feel? You're not gonna hurt my feeling. Wahoo! Ooh, I got 2 wahoos. Buzz. Uh-oh.
Light bulb.
Light bulb. Bam! I like it. Kazam. Okay. We'll work on this one. Groovy. See, okay, so I use, and again, there's a little bit of a warning label on this one because we do have international students, but like, okay, iLearn went down again. I didn't get my assignment in. Email back, hi, I'm so sorry. You know, get your assignment in as soon as you can. Okay, it's just little things like that. Don't do too much, but just little things like that are okay. At least I think so.
And a thing that Christy taught me was to Google
Oh,
onomatopoeic word to see how it pops up, thinking that maybe some student's not going to know that, so they're going to search for it. And some words have meanings you probably don't want them to think you could possibly meaning. So
Yeah.
some words when you
Like
Google it pops out and they can easily see what you mean, but maybe something to be careful about. This table is kind of complicated, and I had to put this in here because I like complicated slides, and it makes it seem like it's smart if there's a lot of stuff going on. But let me just point out to you what is happening here. 25 or 6 students in college students were given, each one of those groups of 25 or 6 students was given a different treatment. And one of the treatments in a constructed seminar series, one of the treatments was text-only communications from the teacher. One was, the second one, text plus a picture of the instructor. The third one was only audio. And then the fourth one was only audio. Well, no, that's not true. It was audio and text, but audio was a big component. Then the fourth one was audio with a picture. And student achievement was measured by a series of tests over the course of this seminar series. Students did significantly better. Not very many percentage points, but 5 or so points, and it was statistically significant that they did better when the teacher was more present because they had audio and a picture of them. Yes.
Now my glasses are a little off, so I may have trouble reading this. But if I'm reading this correctly, you're saying that if we got rid of our pictures, our students would do, like 0.6 better.
Just about as good. Well, this one thing that this is me being a little bit subversive because we all know the audio and video really work, and we're told that it works so much. But here's a study that found out that the differences were not that great. So if we're not doing it all, I don't think we have to feel too guilty. But if we want to maximize what's happening to our students, we can include a video component. The students they gave their evaluations, and you see that what they found the most motivating was text with a picture. This is a pretty small sample set. I think that if you increase the sample set, you might have more people finding that these things were motivational. There's another study. Well, there's a lot of research to back this up, but another podcast study found that most students liked podcasts as part of their instruction, and girls liked the podcast better than boys, which the researchers suggested wasn't so surprising because girls learn differently than boys. They thought that was totally reasonable. But they also found long podcasts did not work. Nobody liked long podcasts. They liked a few minutes. And I believe that a few minutes, even if you give them 3-minute podcasts, audio casts, but you've presented 40 of them, that's also probably not so great. But short audio bits seem to work. But in this small sample case, this highlights that not all students like that. And these students were motivated by text and a picture. And their evaluation about whether or not the tutor was knowledgeable wasn't affected by the picture. In fact, none of this was statistically significant, but you can see that their ratings with the picture were a little bit lower than without the picture for thinking that their instructor was knowledgeable. I don't know for sure because I didn't see the pictures, but I interpret that to mean the picture probably didn't look very smart. You probably had a dumb-looking person on there. So if you're going to share a picture, maybe choose carefully, or use Einstein or someone that you know is able to interpret it in the right way.
But at the same time, I think it's important to be real to them. Like we talk about Yellowstone one week, and I have a picture of me in front of the Yellowstone Falls, and my hair's kind of blown a little bit, but that's cool, like they know that I'm a person and I visited what we're talking about, so that's kind of cool. Okay, again, on the handout that you can get online, you will find this diagram with all these brains. I think it's pretty self-explanatory that people learn in different ways. But the couple things that I want to just put out there about this is to promote expectations and beliefs that optimize motivation. Okay, so this is engagement, and then optimize relevance, value, and authenticity. Because don't put tons of junk out there. Okay, keep it simple. Keep it to things about the class mostly. I mean, we'll talk about a few things in a few minutes, but you know, you got to have it relevant to the students because again, they don't have a lot of time. In order to provide multiple means of representation, you can illustrate through multiple media. Like Arthur just mentioned, alternate between auditory and visual stuff. I had a student that was blind last semester, and so the visual stuff didn't work for her. She uses a screen reader to go through everything, and I had to change some stuff in my course because I had never thought about that before. So it's important that we go through all these different things. And then for action and expression, we need to vary the methods of response. Okay, sometimes it's almost faster for me to just make a quick screencast, and even if I say a couple of times in it, that's okay. I mean, if it's like full of it, then you might want to redo it. But I mean, who here has like never not redone a screencast? Like, I didn't like that one, I'm gonna do it again. So, but I mean, it's okay to have a little bit of that in there.
Well, I hate emoticons. I have always hated emoticons. I think they're unprofessional. I don't like them at all. My name is Arthur Morris. I have always hated emoticons. I'm trying to change. The reason I'm trying to change is because two things have really influenced me. One, I've seen people who are used to text communication using emoticons a lot. And I'm used to face-to-face communications. I don't use emoticons. But people who are like kids who are using text a lot, they're throwing emoticons in. I'm thinking they're sharing nonverbal information. The other one is that the research supports the effectiveness of emoticons. So
It's a side note.
we have to use emoticons. We're not going to spend time on this, but here are some instructional recommendations you can find online. And here's a quote from a student who says, "Thank you for using emoticons."
No, he says,
that was
finally.
Finally, but this was not to me. My students still aren't going to be able to say that. Maybe for a while, but I think that emoticons probably do work, and it's just an area to explore. And I can't give you very many hints, except to say that it bugs me when people put a whole string of emoticons on. So maybe, but why don't you do this? This is part of the plan. Will you, again, take a piece of paper that you can show, and will you write an emoticon about how you feel about using emoticons? And hold it up so I can see.
An
There's a thumbs up
emoticon! That's visual. We need an emoticon. Oh, because you have paper.
And I get that students are doing that with emoticons. But what are they going to do when they get in the real world? And they've got to write a grant.
Well, it's not. Yeah, we're not saying use them in like papers or anything, like professional papers, but like in an email or something.
So found them because I'm professional in graded assignments, but
Yeah.
That sounds like a good idea.
That's what
I do teach
oops.
business writing.
How do you
And
get
they-
back?
No, don't use emoticons.
Don't use them. But and
Alright.
But
I
like
would-
your language
Is it
should
time
be
to
good
play
enough
sport?
and clear enough
Yes.
that you don't need an emoticon.
Yes, I agree with you for sure for that.
Sorry, I don't
And-
agree. I use emoticons. I use smiley faces in my personal emails. I don't, and I sometimes use them in feedback. I don't use it in a professional paper, and I don't let my students use them in actual papers that they turn in. But if I don't know, I'm from a younger generation.
Oh, I thought that's what you meant. In a professional paper, in a technical writing or something, don't use them at all. But let's see, who did it? Erin, maybe Erin, who's the aim for our class. Maybe you did this to me. Someone recently wrote a message to me and put a smiley emoticon on the end of it.
Oh, I hope it wasn't me.
And I really, or maybe it wasn't, maybe it was Christy, but someone did
probably
it.
me.
And I really
use
liked it. It
emoticons.
didn't come across to me as unprofessional. It came across to me as them trying to explain, to soften
Yeah.
something that could have been a little bit critical. But
That's
again,
me then.
so this one is a really easy one for me to downplay because I have always thought emoticons were not so great. So I have to be careful not to say too much negative about them. But I do think that emoticons are one example of a tool that we can use and that probably is worth considering. But
Just
it might
consider it.
not be one that each one of us wants to incorporate fully.
I think a lot of the problem with emoticons is that people either accept them or ban them in a general sense. When in business world, I deal with a company that has over 130,000 employees around the world. And we use them in our chats. We have an instant message. We use them a lot. We use the text to type, if you will, just LOL and so forth. You would think that we were all sitting there with our phones texting each other. Unfortunately, some people are, because you can do that as well. But when it comes to our documents that we're sending out to customers, whatever, those will be banned. So I think it's a matter of where do you use them and how do you use them. If we learn to do that properly, I think it's just as important to teach the students that when using them. So if they use them inappropriately, to let them know this location it's appropriate, this method's appropriate, this location's not.
Yeah.
So,
And one thing I would say, if you do use them, keep to the very basic ones. Don't do all like the crazy ones that nobody knows what they mean. Keep to your basic ones.
So I'm going to just take this one real quick. Honest humor. Humor is a characteristic of people. Humor is also perilous online, as it's easy to misinterpret humor. So humor might be something to incorporate best when you're giving video or audio. And when you do use humor, I think, personally, sarcasm probably doesn't ever have a place just because it's too hard to interpret. And then we're communicating a lot of faithful things, and we don't know exactly what the students are ready for, when they're ready for it. Sometimes the students will ask a question that we can respond with a testimony that's laser focused. Sometimes we don't know. But that doesn't mean that we shouldn't put faithful things in our communications. Our faith is a characteristic of us as people that our students need to know. They need to get that from us. That expresses our love for them, our ability to feel the Spirit. It brings the Spirit into their lives. It helps to develop them as disciples of Christ. And I think that we might need to do that food smorgasbord a little bit, that principle a little bit on this one. We share our testimony, we use faithful language, we tie in scriptures, we do whatever we can, not knowing for sure who is going to influence a lot of the time, but hoping that people are going to find on this table that's full of faith food something that they can really use and go away with. And then, Christy, you want to talk about that?
Okay, well, I talked about this a little bit about using words that are positive and everything, especially when it comes to I Learned 3. Who's in I Learned 3? Yeah, so you probably get hate emails from students, I'm sure. The important thing is just to stay positive, but to know that their issues are real. They are extremely frustrated with things sometimes. They are frustrated with maybe our feedback or how they did. They thought that they did better or worse, or they get frustrated sometimes. So that's real, but it's also important to try and pull that back to the positive. Don't let it spiral downhill, and just keep it positive anytime that you get hate emails, but really tell them that you understand.
So there's a lot of stuff online. One thing is evidence of engagement has been found to be important to students. So if you try something that doesn't work, it's still good that you tried it because it shows students that you're engaged as a person. And that evidence of engagement itself is important.
Hi, I'm Christy Parkinson. I'm a mother of 3, a runner, a basement finisher, and I'm a person.
And I am an ecologist, a father of 5 girls. I'm a lover of good books. I really love good friends. And I'm a person. And you are going to be sending that same message to your students in lots of ways. You're a person. And I hope that Christy and I both will close by saying that we hope that your efforts to communicate your personness to your students is rich and effective. Thanks.
Do you want to introduce us? I'm just kidding. Anybody have any questions? See, they want to go to lunch. Well, we'll be here for just a few minutes. If you have questions.
Where's the website where we can get that?
Okay, on